Hello, welcome to this new episode of the Alex Show TV. As you can see, we have a guest, and I'm very honored and happy today to have Ben from the Why You Are You channel, Euro. Thank you, Ben, for accepting my invitation. I recently discovered your channel through the Terrence Howard videos you made, but then I started watching your other work, and we aligned very much, we resonate very much. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting this invitation.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Ben. So we're discussing before recording, Ben, if we could start with what brought us together, which was Terrence Howard, and how you made this opinion show on his podcast with Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience, that we both have watched. I watched it already a few times. So what do you think of Terrence? What thing went on there? Where is this coming from?
Well, it was organic, first and foremost. If you look at Joe Rogan page, that video in particular has, I think, like 8 or 9 million views now, and his average on YouTube is somewhere in the ballpark of 1 million. So it's drawing a lot of interest right now, and it's drawing a lot of interest from like two sections of humanity. It's people that are rooted within kind of the Newtonian model of science and how things have been, and people that feel sparked by this kind of like Tesla-esque way of looking at science where it's imaginative, it's inventive, and it's tapping into the human potential, which we know is there. And my background, I have a degree in biology, but I don't have a lab within my home. I understand like the theories and the ideas, but I'm not putting together these advanced equations or anything along those lines. But what drew me to him was he was speaking from passion, he was speaking from excitement, and anytime Joe Rogan had a question, like he had an answer ready to go. Was it the right answer? Time will tell, but you mentioned before we started that there's this intuitive feature that you feel, and I have that too. It's like a bloodhound inside me. I have this this feature of feeling this excitement in this life and this consciousness around ideas and things. And when Terrence Howard was speaking, whether it's going to be delivered through him as a vehicle, or whether it's being delivered through other great thinkers within humanity, the sciences and the evolution of it, I feel like what he's tapping into is that. I feel like he's tapping into this potential of science and humanity, and this great offering that we're going to be stepping into as a people. Because right now, I don't know where you stand on this, but right now, I'm speaking more in dualistic terms. Science and industry and things along those lines tends to be limiting. Like my background is in alternative health, alternative medicine, functional medicine. I did chiropractic and functional medicine for a dozen years. I'd got into energy healing. And the things that I was coming across that was working are things that are still ignored. And you hear about things like blocking patents and things within science where if there's not money behind it, then we don't do it. I had a teacher in school that I was a teacher's assistant for, and he did research for a pharmaceutical company. And he said, if I skew the data just right, I can maintain my job. And then you have people like, Johnny Ioannidis, who's a researcher, and he does a lot about what gets published, what doesn't get published, what we allow within the sciences as far as discussion is concerned. So I think what Terrence Howard represents to me is this breaking open of this door, this wall that people have had within the sciences. And there will be people that prove and bring things that are testable and bring things that we can actually use. But what Terrence Howard is bringing in the meantime is this excitement and this open table, this open discussion where people felt on the outside looking in for a long, long time.
Yes, so much there. I do believe you're totally right that we're going to evolve the mainstream quite soon here. That's what I feel. My background is I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to college for that. Even in most of my career, I've done IT, and I own a little business in web hosting and that kind of things related to IT. But I mean, I endorse for a long while the scientific method. But right now, I only endorse it till the fourth step, which is theory. The fifth step is called law, and that's what I disagree completely, because law is a popularity contest. So, for example, Terrence Howard on the podcast, he mentioned Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Sure.
I particularly think he's useless, okay, like that. Because what happens is the scientific method right now in the scientific community is all about peer review. So it's a popularity contest. So if 100 scientists get together and they say the earth is flat, then the earth is flat. Doesn't matter what we think, doesn't matter what we feel, doesn't matter our intuition. That's going to be. If they say it's round, it has to be round. Because again, it's peer reviewed, they are scientists, they studied. Neil deGrasse Tyson continues to say he has studied for 40 years. I don't care about that. I could have an intuition that surpasses that in a second. You've probably seen it, but do you remember the movie Good Will Hunting?
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
I love it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This guy was young, no formal instruction, and he could solve inexplicably mathematical problems that the doctor, that all the prize mathematicians
Mhm.
take months and they have to get together, and some they couldn't even solve. And this guy will do it in a few minutes without knowing how he was doing it. Very important.
Yeah.
And then a beautiful part of the movie is when he says of a musician that he sees a piano, he doesn't understand it, but he just plays.
Mhm.
And I believe that's what's happening with Terrence Howard. He's very smart, of course, he's very bright,
Yeah.
but I felt pure divine wisdom. And when he spoke about the palace he will go in his dreams,
Mhm.
I want to clarify, we all have access to those things. That's why I share on my shows that dreaming is so important, because dreaming is when you go from conscious to unconscious. And dreaming is a natural, universe given process that we reconnect and we leave this reality and we reconnect to that. That's why a lot of his stuff came through dreams and came through that processes. I will dream, I'm in the palace and I will see this stuff. Going on specifics, I'm not saying I'm smart as him or anything. I want to clarify, it's all intuition, but for years now, I felt gravity is a force of electricity.
Mhm.
I can still not understand how not even Neil deGrasse Tyson or anything, they cannot explain gravity. And they just say, oh, we know it's there, but we don't know where it's coming from. It's clearly coming from inner Earth. And that's why the Earth is a sphere and it's moving and it has a core that interaction, like a generator, is
Yeah.
creating that movement. If it stops, gravity stops. That's what's creating the force. That for me came years ago, okay? And the universe, another thing he mentioned, extremely important concept. The universe is electric, not chemical.
Yeah.
They love for us to think that the universe is chemical because of energy, which is vital for them, that energy is produced so they can control it. So in a chemical universe, energy is potential, like
Mhm.
it's usually heat potential, which is called uh, enthalpy. And that heat potential, for example, in oil, in gas, in carbon, or even in nuclear, which generates heat, that generates steam, that moves a turbine, that moves a generator, that generates electricity. But everything is stored, it's a potential. And they understand in an electrical universe, because all is movement, as Terence said, everything is moving in the universe. Nothing is stopped. Everything is moving all the time. Galaxies are moving, planets are moving, solar systems are moving among themselves. Everything is movement. That makes that energy is available. It's not created. Energy is there for us. So
Yeah.
that's the principle that someone like Terence, or it's going to come very soon for humanity, we're going to discover that energy is right here with us because it's the movement. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's what is movement also in the universe? Love, the only pure energy from the
Yeah.
creation, which is love. Because all other air quotes emotions, hate, fear, rage, and that, they're just here. If you clear your mind, all of that goes away.
Yeah.
If they clear our minds from all our memories or all our preconceptions, all that, and you see a white person, a black person, a yellow person, a red person, it's all the same. You don't go, oh, this is black. Oh my God, this is a terrorist. Oh my God, this is a Muslim. Oh my God, this is a Christian. No, you don't. Those are preconceptions.
Right.
Okay. So, sorry, I kind of deviated, but
Well, you're starting
yeah, go
with
ahead.
the first principle of we know how the universe works and it works this way. And when you apply that first principle to everything, even though that first principle might not be correct, then it can alter the science because now there's a heavy bias within the science. I feel like that's what you're saying. You're saying if you're presupposing that gravity, which is not a constant, if you listen to Rupert Sheldrake as an example, he talks about how, the institutes that are measuring gravity will come to an agreement. But gravity is not even necessarily the constant that we make it. It's just something that we have called a constant. But if you start with these preconceptions, these are big things to presuppose. And then when you make them laws and become codified, then that alters how you see things. So like within the field of health, that's my background, so that's what I can speak to. Electrical engineering is beyond my purview. And you could give me an education on that in a way that,
No,
I would
no.
have to sit back. No, I'm serious. Like I could sit back and listen to you and grow. Because I want to hear, like everyone has their mastery. I want to hear your mastery. I want to hear everyone's mastery. But with what I wanted to see within, say healing arts, functional medicine, chiropractic, things like that, when I would look within the medical spheres, it was that a disease has the person. And like with COVID, as an example, this virus just was proliferating and we were captive to it. But it ignored, and we didn't look epidemiologically at populations of people that were not having major reactive events. Not everyone had the same event structure that we had, the same epidemiological fronts that we were seeing within the United States. Not every country was dealing with the same thing, but our diet and our lifestyle and those features are different as well. And I like to look at it like we were speaking briefly before we started about, say, chronic fatigue, who gets chronic fatigue, who doesn't get chronic fatigue. If it is our mental construct, and love is actually what's driving our state of unity and state of peace and state of harmony, then we can look at things differently. We can see who's getting what. We can talk about what state of consciousness is actually driving it, and it's driving our science as well. If we're looking at things molecularly or chemically, if we're looking at things as an interaction of movement or electromagnetism, which I believe very strongly in electromagnetism. You have drawn me into your experience, and I have drawn you into my experience. We've done so mutually. You might say this within Buddhism, there's like a mutual arising within the event we're creating right now based upon the magnetism of my interest, the evolution of my soul, my consciousness, and what it is I'm generating as lessons or experience to bring me to my next iteration of self-knowledge and self-wisdom and self-understanding. And in the case of Howard, he's asking questions that aren't being addressed or asked, and that's what you're touching upon within the Neil deGrasse Tyson piece. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, yet when I listen to him, I see a man who has his blinders up. He can only see the world a certain way. And when you consider the great minds that have existed, they went into a reverie or dream state. They went into meditation to come up with these ideas. Einstein, as an example, went into reverie. He went into a dream state, into like a meditative state. He would have these thought experiments that he would see as these visions, and then he was able to produce the sciences to match it. But we have to be imaginative. We have to be curious. If we just say, no, it can't be this, no, it can't be that, no, it can't be this, we become limited. And from the world that I came from, functional medicine and alternative medicine, alternative health, I was working on some level with this reductive thinking, with the patient and doctor relationship, and not seeing that we have the potential to heal ourselves, and that we're all just sitting on that vast potential. And that's not just with healing, it's with sciences, it's with technology, it's with industry as well.
Yes, and I wanna make a point now that you mentioned medicine.
Please.
And that.
Yeah.
When I was sharing with you before recording that, I also align a lot with you when you mentioned your chronic fatigue struggles in your 20s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
For me, it happened kind of the breaking point, or all my life, I didn't have the normal energy. I couldn't do sports like my friends or anything like that. But when I was 19, the stresses of college, I was also working at the time. So I was kind of pulling, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, plus the normal 19-year-old that you go out to clubs and that. It's not like I was going to rest on the weekends or anything like that. I was, of course, going to enjoy myself and that. So I think I pushed it to a way that I got into that kind of chronic fatigue moment. I did have driving to school. I had a situation that all my body started kind of feeling very weak, and I had to stop, and someone helped me out there and called my parents. And the thing, since I started noticing, is they did tests on me, and all the tests came back normal, and they said, well, it's only his mind.
Yeah.
And they were very quick, the doctors, the neurologists, the cardiologists, and that, to say this is a mental problem, this is kind of an emotional thing, this depression, this anxiety. And they will always suggest antidepressants and anti-anxiety, Xanax, and that kind of stuff, which I rejected, by the way, because I felt that was wrong. It was not what was going on. So I think the same problem with medicine, mainstream medicine, by the way, because the best doctors that have helped me have been alternative doctors, is the same as with normal science. That is, even if it doesn't appear to be, it's extremely limited, like Terence says. They gave us, for example, in mathematics, they gave us this linear system, okay? That's when he says 1 times 1 doesn't equal 1. It makes all the sense to me. 1 times 1 is more than 1. And if you do 1 times 1 times 1, you have a depth that is more than, it's a cube, okay?
Yeah.
But most people say, no, you're wrong. 1 times 1 times 1 equals 1. Yes, that's what we have been taught. And just think about it. If someone gave that to us, an advanced, I know I don't want to go really out there. I'm very much into going out there, but let's assume someone gave this to us.
Sure.
Another beings from another place. If they wanted to keep us limited, will they give us all the goods, or will they give us a limited version of, hey, you do this, so you stay within the boundaries? And same with medicine. I think the problem with medicine, first of all, is thinking that we're all equal as a body, and I think we're all different, actually.
Right.
So because we have 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms, a heart, a stomach, you're basically equal, and that's the problem I face. I had some other issues. And for example, a doctor recommended, he said, you know what, I'm going to make a script that you go to the emergency room and they put some B vitamins on you
Mhm.
through, directly.
Intravenous.
Intravenous,
Yeah.
yes, that's the name,
Yeah.
intravenous. It almost killed me because I have the mutation that I cannot process, I cannot activate B vitamins, okay? I
Yeah.
need the activated versions. I
The
think it's,
methylated version.
yes, the methylated.
Methylfolate or
Exactly.
tetramethylfolate.
And
Yeah.
especially B12 is the one
Yeah.
that I need the activated version.
Yeah. Methylcobalamin.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
So I go to the emergency room, I give the script, they put that, I start feeling awfully, extremely dizzy, weak.
Sure.
I could barely speak. And I could probably have died if they continue going because my liver was trying to process all these B vitamins that were coming in such a quantity and so fast into the bloodstream.
But it was the wrong analog, the wrong version of it.
Exactly, yes, because
Yeah.
they were the regular ones, which most
Right.
people or a percentage of population can activate because
Right.
they don't have the gene,
MTFHR.
that's the
Yeah.
one I have.
Yeah.
So basically in that way, the doctor didn't bother to investigate that, didn't order, some kind of exam or something to say, hey, maybe you have this stuff. He assumed
Mhm.
that, it's going to be fine. And years later, I had to investigate on my own what went on there because it was really surprising. And again, they said this guy was nervous, even if I basically was paralyzed. And
Yeah.
this guy was nervous and, it was a panic attack or something because they usually do that. And especially now they invented this fibromyalgia thing, which is
Mhm.
basically we are not able to find what's wrong with you, so you have fibromyalgia.
It's a diagnosis of exclusion.
Yes.
And it becomes a syndrome, and syndromes have no etiology, they have no cause. So you end up on an island where the people that are serving you on that island are not actually, they say, well, there's no answer. And if you believe that, you live on that island. If you begin to look outside of that, which is what led you on your path and what led me on my path, I began to look outside of that island and say, well, I'm going to find people that at least want to give it a try, or at least want to look at it from a different angle. Otherwise, I'm marooned and I'm going to be fatigued and stuck on this island for the rest of my life. And it's a hellish place to be.
Yes, it's quite bad.
Yeah. But what you're alluding to is like, you could take like modern food refinement, which I don't mean to jump off on too many topics, but you can talk about modern food refining. And when they stripped the wheat, as an example, to white flour, they noticed people were developing deficiencies. So they said, well, we have an answer. Let's put in iron, right? But the iron they're putting in there is not heme iron, nor is it bioavailable iron. And it tends to be iron that will bind to the body and be difficult to get rid of. It's like if you took a magnet and you broke it down and you said, there, now you've got your iron, but it is metallic iron. It's not bioavailable iron. It doesn't work in the body the same way. And there's one speaker who was working within functional medicine years ago who said, if you look at hemochromatosis, which is high blood levels of iron over the last 60 to 80 years, it's gone up, I think he was saying 350 or 400%. I don't know the exact number, but it's gone up orders of magnitude of where it was before. He had intimated a part of that has been food refining and using the wrong forms of iron, which gets lodged in your kidneys, in your liver, and must then be chelated out. People that have hemochromatosis, what do? They do bloodletting. They go to the hematologist or they go to the phlebotomist and have blood removed. But it could be something where the body is storing these toxic forms of minerals, which are not analogous. And I'm the same way as you. When I would take synthetic B vitamins, I would have a very strong reaction. But when I was given food grade, where I was given the methylated versions of it, I would do better. And I began to realize that the apples were not the apples. You have to actually find the real McCoy, the real version of it. And it led me to question, I think what you're questioning with the 1x1, I'm not here to stand as an expert. Math is not my strong suit. My strong suit is communication and breaking down theories and ideas, coming to understandings and synthesizing this and sharing it with people. But the 1x1 thing strikes me in the same way that other ideas strike me, like the JFK assassination struck me, like the moon landing struck me, like aliens struck me, like flat Earth had struck me, right? Whether or not any of these things are true, what it presupposes is that there's this world out there that we're ignoring, and that the powers that be, even though it's always an aspect of us, this outside voice is not telling us the truth. And people that I see speaking within that sphere, they say, I'm not living my human potential, and the people around me are not living their human potential. So, and the gatekeepers, people like you might say Neil deGrasse Tyson, these gatekeepers, I don't believe what they're saying because they're looking through a very limited lens. They're not open to discussion. They're not open to debate. They're not open to people sitting at the table and saying, what about this? What about that? And if you have such a reductive viewpoint and you say, no, I'm sorry, it's only the church, It's only the scientist or the scientism that we're getting, which is almost like, I've heard some people say it's almost like a cult, it's almost like a religion unto itself, where we're not really using this open-minded state that we can use. You know, these innovative thoughts. You've heard in the case of Tesla, he died broken, penniless, I believe, in a hotel. And many of his ideas never saw the light of day, where he could take people like Royal Rife, where he had created frequency generators, and he was actually healing cancer in the 1940s. And the predecessor in the United States to the FDA went into his facility and destroyed his equipment because it ran contrary to industry. So there's a line I like to say often, and the line goes like this. It's one from Upton Sinclair. You can't teach a man something whose job it is not to know it. If Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm not picking on him, but if his job is to maintain his spokesmanship and his position, then anyone that comes in is a threat, and this is the ego. But in the case of Royal Rife, innovation was stifled, and we're now using frequency generators now. There are people that are using these technologies now, and we're finding there's TED Talks on it. It's becoming more mainstream. But he came across this in the 1940s, and he was taking the frequency of cancer, and he was creating a resonant field in such a sense that it was causing the cancer cells to lyse or break down. And just that frequency specifically, like how an opera singer sings at a certain pitch and can break glass. He was tapping into this, but our fear of not controlling and holding industry, and what if we don't have enough, right? The gatekeepers, the people that speak on that behalf, they don't want innovation because that might mean that their positions are gone. So when it comes to innovation, people might lose their jobs, they might lose their prestige, they might lose their positions within whatever ivory tower or institution they're in. But progress is a runaway train, it's coming. And what Terrence Howard was tapping into was that progress, that train that we know is there. And whether it's his voice or whether it's other voices that join him, it has to be this passion, it has to be this excitement that we tap into, because people standing up there saying, no, it doesn't work that way, you're wrong, you're an idiot for believing that. No one wants to hear that voice. That's not something you can rally around. If it's true, it's spoken with passion, it gets people interested. If there is an untruth in it, then it's something where we try to control people and say, get away from this. You're not a scientist. You can't know, you can't question. And that becomes like the religions of old, where you say, oh, I want to talk to God. You can't talk to God because you're not clergy, because you're not a pastor, because you're not in a box. You've not been appointed.
It's through us. Okay.
Right.
I want to talk to God. Yes, it's through us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we're getting to, is we're having our own direct experience. And we get to evolve with that. But the best ideas can come to the forefront. And we get to live in a world where we're not suppressing ideas. Did you ever hear of Zach Bush before? You would really love his stuff. And I've listened to him a few times on Aubrey Marcus's podcast, which is a phenomenal podcast. He's touching upon things you and I are talking about as well. But Zach Bush is a medical doctor that had an awakening. And he worked within the emergency rooms and things along those lines. And he found the way that he was working was not true. And he's even gotten into near-death experiences. He's brought people back from the dead. And the people that he brings back from the dead more often than not say, why'd you bring me back? I was in bliss. I had no pain. I don't want to be back here. They had no fear in that place. They come back and they're having this, why'd you bring me back? But why I bring him up is he found a cure for cancer. He found a cure for cancer, a cure. There's many. He found a cure for cancer. And he went to patent it, and he couldn't because there was already a patent. And he reached out to the company that had the patent, being naive at the time. And he said, oh, wow, you found the answer too. And they wanted nothing to do with him. They wanted nothing to do with him because what they had created was a blocking patent. They created something where they found something innovative, but it ran contrary to what they were selling, which was chemotherapy, drugs, and medications. So they were sitting on these technologies. Now, I'm not to denigrate because I understand the consciousness behind it. There's a fear that if you don't have or I don't have a leg up on you, I can't control you, I can't generate money. And until we can live in a world where we're giving openly to one another and we're seeing that I'm an extension of you and you're an extension of me, these innovations can come to the forefront. But up until that point, we're going to tell everyone to be quiet. You can't do that. You can't heal your own body. Are you kidding me? You can't heal your body. You need drugs. You need medication. You need these synthetic B vitamins that are going to kill you. This is what you need. And during COVID, to touch on that point again, what frustrated me, the part of me that's still egoic, the part of me that's still unifying, is that we have this whole world of frequencies and technology and things we can do. And what were we doing? We were telling people, no, you can only do vaccines. You can only avoid one another. If someone is sick, they need to be held and loved and cared for and nurtured. What we did was we put people in facilities where they were locked away and alone. If you want to make somebody sick, you isolate them. That's what leads to depression. That's a big catalyst for depression. But there was only one answer, and that one answer was a magic vaccine that has never been tested. And that was the answer. And if we did that in conjunction with something, I could see it. But you saw this with Joe Rogan. Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. These were things that had, one of those two had won a Nobel Prize, had been proven efficacious, and was not even on the table. And it's for the very reason I'm mentioning the part of us that wants to control, the part of us that is afraid that if we lose control, we're not going to have money, we're not going to have resources, we're not going to have prestige. That is the part of consciousness that says, I can't debate you, Terrence Howard. You're a fool. You're ignorant. I can't allow your thoughts to pervade. Even if he's not the person who's going to bring it, he's bringing an excitement. And it sparked you and I in a way.
Yes. I want to show you when you were saying that.
Yeah.
I have here in my office.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, this is a Spooky machine. This is a Rife machine. I know you have seen this Spooky too, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen that one in particular. I've seen like biomeridian scans and things like that.
Yes,
I've not seen that, but I've heard of it before.
This is the cheap one. This is 100 US for the machine, and the software is free.
Yeah.
And I run it on myself, several programs, and I use it from time to time. I don't use it every day, but certainly makes all the sense in the world. And similar to what Terrence said with the periodic table, that he, for example, said you have water, hydrogen, and oxygen, and you introduce the frequency of beryllium, the sound of beryllium, which is the frequency, and these bonds will break. So Dr. Rife, what he discovered is not that everything could be healed through frequency, because, for example, you're missing iron, if you're missing amino acids, they're not going to come through frequency, but certainly related to pathogens and disease through bacteria, mold, viruses, and parasites. Sorry about that. That machine and similar technology certainly works. There's even a program which I don't recommend because it's too much. That is called Zapping, that has this that we will try to kill all the pathogens and parasites and bacteria you have. Which
that was Hulda Clark.
Yes,
Hulda Clark had created that, and the Zapper.
The Zapper, yes, it has it, but it's too much. Even the program says don't run it for a long time or anything, because killing everything at the same time will create a lot of waste material and that. So it's probably
it ignores something too. And getting back to the point of like what you have in your body, if you have, as an example, heavy metals, then your body will have higher levels of yeast. But there's a symbiotic balance. Yeast is actually helping to break that down. It's actually helping to work. If you follow the work of Paul Stamets, as an example, and he's a really fascinating person. He's a famed mycologist who studies mushrooms and mycology. But the mushrooms are showing that they can break down plastics, and they can actually take oil and turn it into something that's inert or safe. And in your body, if you have a toxic burden, heavy metals and things like that, the parasites might belong, the yeast might belong, and as the host gets healthy, then you can do something with it. But if you're just destroying why it's there, it's ignoring why it's filled that vacuum, and it can make the person have a reaction, what you might call like a Herxheimer reaction or a detox reaction.
Yes.
And you can work with that. It's something you can work with, but you can overstimulate the body in that sense, and you can cause, in some instances, more harm than good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So so much there. I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you a question, but I think also, Ben, what happened with the whole Terrence experience and people making fun of it.
Yeah.
I do believe there's some mental, or mind has some protection mechanisms when things are too far-fetched, like people sometimes with aliens or life outside Earth or ghosts or stuff like that, that they go by the five senses and they say, well, if there's no evidence, I'm not going to believe it. You are not correct. And they totally close themselves up. And that's when the making fun comes along. Like, for example, you mentioned in COVID, people will say, when you try to explain these alternative solutions, they will say, well, the first question some people will have is, are you a doctor? Are you a scientist?
Right.
And you will say, well, not really, but so I don't want to hear no more. We go back to the validation, to the peer review, to who are you to mention this?
To the gatekeepers.
Exactly. And I think also that's why a lot of people have tried to ridiculize Terrence Howard, is because he's an actor, which, by the way, I have to be honest with my opinion, he's an actor I always liked very much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something I cannot explain. I know you have seen many movies of him. I probably have seen 10, 12. But in Hustle and Flow, for example, that he was a pimp, he will look like a very empathetic pimp. And he mentioned something like that. No matter the part I was playing, I always will see something in him, a little bit different, a little empathy, a little, humanity. I just think he's a very good person. The bright part, I'm the smartest person in the world. I think the ego is playing something there. I think we all have the same potential. We are not smart through the mind, we're smart through the intuition, through our connection to the universe. And that's what he's saying. He was 7 or 8 and he will understand stuff. That's not the mind. That's impossible, it's the mind. The mind is not even developed to have
Yeah.
that kind of intelligence. That has to be the intuition. And Tesla was something like that. There are stories that Tesla will visualize things. It's not everything through equations and research and experimentation, like, for example, was Einstein. Tesla was more, I see energy, I understand energy is there. It was more a vision. It was more kind of philosophical in a way, not so. I mean, the regular scientist is a lot of experimentation, analyzing the results of the experiments and making tweaks here and there to finding that and making calculations and equations and that to find, again, through the scientific method, okay? Observation, experiment, hypothesis, experimentation, theory, law. I observe a thing, I make a hypothesis of what's going on, I do experiments, I come up with a theory. Until there, I'm fine. But then a law is basically saying, I don't care what you think, I don't care what you see, I don't care what you experiment, I don't care what you theorize. I already made it a law. And one example with Einstein was he came that the law of conservation of energy, which basically tells you that the energy you get from a system, you're never going to get more than that.
Right.
So you have to create energy. You're never going to get energy, not going to come from nowhere, this notion of free energy.
The first law of thermodynamics.
Exactly. He came with that and he said it applies all throughout the universe. And I asked the question, how? It has to be an assumption because did he travel to outside the solar system or something to test it? No, he assumed through observation, he said, basically, the laws we have here on Earth apply all throughout the universe. And that, for me, is just assumption. I don't think
it becomes reductive because based upon the limitation of what I can see, that's the extent at which I see the universe. I then become the measure of how deep or how vast or how expansive I am, not how deep, how vast, and how expansive the universe is. So what you're saying with like the scientific method, the people that push the scientific method forward or scientific ideas forward are people who pushed ideas forward. Like Galileo as an example, I used him in the video, but he was on house arrest for the last 9 years because he was pushing Overton's window of what was allowed at the time beyond the limits. That the heliocentric model of the universe went beyond what was allowed to be seen at the time. And the person who is the teacher, the person who is the innovator, is just looking a little bit more broadly at the world than the person who's more reductive or more closed. You talk about energy, we have, I forget the actual number, but it's like 96% or 98% of the universe is comprised of dark matter and dark energy. But we don't know what it is. And yet it's what fits the theorems and the models and the math. And it's something that we can't fully explicate. Getting into energy work and healing, and even going back to chronic fatigue, one reason why I don't fatigue is because I know how to tap back into source, how to source energy, source consciousness. And that's an abstraction. I can't give you a theorem behind it. I can't give you an equation for it. I can't reach it with your mind. But if I'm sitting with somebody, I can bring them into a unified field. And if they want to go really deep, I can move them into a place where they are unified with me. And I would do that in meditation, where I had one lady who came into one of the meditations I was running, and I could feel empathically the pain inside of her body. I stepped closer to her and I said, I can feel the pain inside of you right now. And then I said, and you don't need to hide. And I pointed to where it was inside of her and she could feel it in that moment. And I said, I'm in that space with you right now. And she began to cry. And then I told her that I loved her. I'd only known her for like an hour at that point. I told her I loved her. And she told me that she loved me as well. And then she felt ashamed for it. And I said, why is it that you have to know me as a human to love me? Why do you have to have a precondition to love me? You don't need a precondition to love me. And I stepped closer to her. I said, and your pain, if I'm an aspect of the universe and I'm stepping closer to you, your pain is not a point of rejection. Your point is not a place I'm rejecting, and it's not a place that love can't enter. And I'm here as an ambassador to love, to universe, to consciousness, to show you right now that the love you've been resisting, the love you've been pushing away wants to come in, but you have to allow it. And then she cried and I hugged and held her. But she was willing in that moment to go into a merged state with me, and many people are not willing to do that because they're holding on to, grasping onto this small self. And that small self is the self that we have to die to, whether it's a physical death or whether it's an egoic death, the ego death. That small self is not meant to live forever. That small self is meant to be a step as you ascend towards your divine state or who you really are. And when you could be in a humble space, a space that says, almost like Socrates, I don't know everything, but if I tap into my intuitive state, I tap into the knowingness of the universe, and whatever I need to know or I'm open to know in the moment can come to me. If I live from a closed mental state, then I'm already dead. I just haven't died the egoic death or the physical death yet, but it's coming. And if I want to really invest in my own healing and my own life, I have to let go and I have to be humble and I have to be connected and I have to tap into what I believe is the universal wellspring of energy. When I tap into that, I don't need sleep. I don't exhaust. And I can run energy into people and it's not coming from me. And if it's not coming from me and I'm not exhausting as a system, what is that telling you? You know, in a shamanistic term, it might be coming from the world of the formless, which is giving birth to the world of the form, the spiritual abstraction, the fabric of the universe. Or in the case of Advaita, I always mispronounce it, Vedanta, the non-dual Hinduism. It's basically non-dual Hinduism. In that school, everything is water, everything is clay, and we're just taking the universal substrate and converting it into material, and then breaking it down and converting it all over again. But the models that we have from before, which are reductive and say we're in a closed system, and we die, and then we're just turned to dust, and our lives are meaningless. We have to evolve past that model because that engenders depression, it engenders disease, it engenders war, and engenders control over one another. When the world we live in produces, I heard this before, we throw away like a third of the food on the planet. We produce enough food to feed the planet and then some. We have more than what we need, but we're in such a place of control and fear that we withhold it from ourselves first, and then we withhold it from humanity, trying to control it all.
Yes, that sorry, I'm gonna start with that point you made. Something that for me, that we throw away so much food and people are dying of hunger. That is such a, I don't know. I don't know what to say on that.
Yeah.
That for me is the first things. The first things, if we're gonna fix this world, we need to tackle on. No one must die of hunger. Come on.
Or be
Then-
homeless for that matter. Or be
Yes,
without.
yes, or yes, first of hunger and then of the elements and
Yeah.
disease, and tackle all of these things. Because I think we could be much healthier, more than tackling disease on how we fix disease, which is the medicine system with their drugs and their doctors and all their machines. For example, when they want to screen you for cancer, they send you to an MRI that creates a lot of radiation. I remember a doctor telling me a few years ago, I was doing my yearly checkup, and he says, we've reduced the number of MRIs we do. We used to do, to try to see if you have cancer in the stomach and so, but we did so much that we're actually creating so much radiation, and then maybe that creates cancer. So
Yeah. Well, especially like with the breast cancer where they're doing the mammography,
yes,
and you're using ionizing radiation when you could use ultrasound and thermography, which are non-invasive. They can actually detect the cancers earlier, and by the time it shows up on an X-ray or a CT or something like that, it's been there for a while. But yeah,
yes, and also with mammography, they push what I've heard is they push the breast.
Yeah.
That it breaks some contention, some lymphatic kind of things that
it can create a hyperemic state.
Yes.
It can create inflammation, and it can actually dislodge the cancer and cause it to metastasize.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's doing more harm than good in a way. You go there for a screening, and maybe that's what eventually will cause it. And I'm not sure I want to talk about cancer anymore because it's a hot topic on the platform, and I have a theory on cancer, and I hope they don't pick it up, but I do believe cancer is something we create. It's something the body creates to actually protect you from something else. So we hate cancer in a way, but how about we try to fix it? For example, correcting correcting what you eat, correcting the EMF. I mean, I know a family member. She moved into an office that they had a lot of radiation. I'm not gonna say what because it's gonna get the bit in trouble. But they had power there, okay, in the ceiling, and she used to work in a very high floor, very close to the ceiling. 1-2 years after, cancer. Okay, so if you are bombarded, if you are eating stuff that creates a lot of inflammation, if you're creating stuff that your body's constantly, if you're eating stuff that your body's constantly fighting it, that is creating that all these allergies and that, then how about cancer? Is your body compacting this and saying, okay, I cannot deal with this anymore. I'm gonna protect yourself from it as I deal with it. That's why they say sometimes cancer, if you leave it alone, it will fix it itself. It's a theory. It's not very mainstream. I know people that have cancer want to take it out as soon as possible. I'm not saying you should leave it or don't do anything. This is not medical advice. We don't give medical advice here. I'm just saying it's an intuition I have that cancer is something created by the body.
Well, it's adaptative. What you're describing is adaptative. And what isn't in the universe adaptative? Everything's adaptative. Why do we have MRSA as an example, the antibiotic resistant staph aureus that we have within the hospitals. It's because life proliferates. If you try to stop life, you can't stop life. Life will find a way. Not to quote Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, but life will find a way. And everything is an adaptive process. So if you take the host and you bombard them with heavy metals and chemicals that they've never adapted, we have not evolved to consume sugar, processed foods, these chemicals and the levels that we have. The body will create these adaptive processes like cancer in order to survive. And cancer, I can see, it's a differentiation of the cell where the cell goes from being like a liver cell to a cancer cell. And a cancer cell is immortal. But a cancer cell is also operating, and this is from actually an Italian researcher. He believed that cancer was a fungus. That was his theory. But he believed that it was in an anaerobic state. And when the cells are in an anaerobic state or the lymphatic system is unable to handle the toxic burden upon the body, that the cells differentiate and create this adaptive state to where they can proliferate and handle whatever the toxic burden is in a different way. There's so many ways we can look at it, though. So whether what you're communicating, whether I'm communicating is right, what we're saying is maybe the way we're looking at it isn't right, because we started in this country a war on cancer in the 1970s, and cancer has not diminished. It's the top 2 or top 3 cause of death. And I'm sorry, but the genes are not the explanation either, because if it were strictly genes, then it would always have been at this level. You have to consider the environment that we're in, the world we find ourselves in, and how we as humans are maladapted. We're maladapted through our depression, through our anxiety, through our isolation, through what we're eating, what we're thinking, how we're being. And it is a maladapted state, a disharmonious state that is creating disease in the first place. If you want to heal from disease, and this is a broad statement, but if you want to heal from disease, then you put the person, you put the organism in a proper milieu, in a proper setting. Bruce Lipton did this. He actually would say, if you put poison in a petri dish and you put food on the other side, the cells always move towards the food. And as souls, that's what we're doing as well. We are, through our consciousness, through our awareness, tracking what is actually feeding us, bringing us joy, bringing us life, bringing us health. And then we're like the cells in the petri dish. We're moving away from the poison and we're moving towards the food, which is where we're going to really have our self-discovery, our self-actualization, and the harmony we've been seeking all along. It's here for us, but we have to move away from the poison within our world.
Yes, yes, so much there.
Yeah.
So we have gone almost for an hour, Abe. So do you have anything in closing, any questions or, anything for the next episode?
Well, I'd love to share time with you again. I'd like to laud you on what you're doing. When we first got on this call together, you said, I've been wanting to record for years. I realized that however I'm doing it is how I'm doing it. It may not be $1 million production studio. I don't have $1 million production studio, but we're doing it. We're getting our voice out there. So what I would like to leave in closing is anyone watching this, if you feel inspired, don't hide anymore. Be out there, put yourself out there, write a comment, put a video out, share this and share other material, but begin to create the world you want to create, because no one's going to create it for you. You'll find points that you're inspired and you'll start to, like we did, share the Terrence Howard experience. Or share the Royal Rife experience as far as people that have motivated us and inspired us. And then we're sharing what we want to see in the world. If you want to see it in the world, you have to share it. You have to be the cheerleader behind it. You have to bring the energy of what you want to share into existence. And that's what I want to laud you for doing. You're creating a platform to share these ideas. You're evolving as a soul. You're sharing it with your children in your life. And you're making, I don't want to say you're making the world a better place, because that seems like judgment, but you're enriching your life and you're bringing more consciousness into your life, which can only enrich the lives of the people around you in the world that you step in. So that's the best we can do as souls.
Thank you. And I also believe that, I want to say something that, unfortunately, on mainstream success, we have the idea, for example, that, you are successful in life, unfortunately related to money or how much fame you get. For example, you're a doctor, you're out there, you're not making a lot of money, then maybe you're not mainstreamly successful and you are a world-renowned surgeon or something like that, then you made it. And here with the creators, it goes with views, likes, subscribers, and that. And you're totally right. I mean, I started this early 2022. I appeared on a show that doesn't exist anymore called Wake in the Future, and I was so inspired. When I rewatched it, I was surprised of the things I said. Because honestly, at the beginning, I was quite nervous. It was my first appearance, and they were taking on their own viewers as guests. They were asking for the viewers to reach out, hey, do you want to come on the show? And they will take everyone. And so after 2 appearances with them, I said, hey, I need to continue going. So I started my channel on a Sunday, just with a presentation. You could do it with a cell phone. You don't even need more than a cell phone. Just put a cell phone and do
Yeah.
like a selfie recording and just speak for 5 minutes, and that's a video, and upload it to YouTube with your cell phone. You can even do that. So I agree with you completely, and I share the same message. If you want to do a show, if you think I can help you, just at the Alex Show TV, just send me an email or through the comments. But please speak out. We need everyone to share their own message. They're all important. And it doesn't matter if you start with 5 views, 2 subscribers. That's not the point. Actually, the best content out there, like Abe's channel,
Mhm.
is content that is not necessarily million views, 5 million views, or anything like that. Okay. There's a lot of shows that they have grown for reasons that I don't understand. That is the mainstream thing that I don't know, they share spooky messages, spooky stories and stuff like that, or a meteor is coming, the apocalypse is coming, and so these fear-based, fear-mongering based channels, they get a lot of interaction as well. Just pick what you want to talk about and just speak about it like you're talking to yourself or to one person. That's what I do, especially
Yeah.
on my own shows. And and uh, and that's great advice. I think that's something that is happening right now, and also the mainstream media doesn't like it because in a way we are media. In a
Yeah.
way, we're little media, and it doesn't like it that we have an opinion, that we have something to share, because it's easier when the ones giving out information, the ones giving out content, is just a handful that you can control instead of these thousands or millions of channels speaking through these platforms that some of them share quite interesting information. Okay,
Yeah.
so thank you for that. I would love for us to speak again in the next few weeks or months, however you feel like it. And definitely, I would love to do a show specifically on chronic fatigue because, as I shared before recording, I once heard someone say, "Well, chronic fatiguers are people that are just weak," and
No, not at all.
you totally don't understand that they are. It's not that I'm one of them, but people that have chronic fatigue, especially, you get almost no empathy because it's not like you have something that is diagnosed or mainstream, or for example, I don't know, I have a heart problem, so people kind of understand you. You're out there, and sometimes you're really strong, you're really having issues to just operate and function, and people are not going to understand. I'm tired,
Mhm.
or I'm fatigued,
Yeah.
so sleep more. No, it's not like that. I sleep plenty, but it's still you just don't have the energy. And I definitely also want to talk to you. I'll probably send you an email, and then we'll just talk more, because I've heard about this story of channeling this source energy.
Mm.
I talk a lot to the universe, okay, and maybe I'm not asking or not doing it properly. That, hey, I need some physical energy. Uh, it sometimes when I have had very rough patches, very in a difficult situation, I don't want to say I pray, but I ask the universe, hey, help me
Mhm.
out, and I notice that what you said. I notice an influx of kind of energy, and I feel much better suddenly. And maybe I need to do that a little bit more.
Well, that would be a show unto itself, and it could actually be shown how to tap into source energy, because it is something that's reproducible. And one of my favorite part of that is when I would go to the schools and do talks, I would bring the students that were skeptics to the front after the talk, and the ones that were skeptical were the ones who moved the most. They were the ones that were just out of control with the energy, and it was something you could just do over and over and over again. So one of the things I want to do as a mission, and it sounds aggrandizing, but I want to teach people how to heal themselves. I want to build global community. I want to create an open space for people to communicate ideas, their gifts, and talents within the world. And I want to show people how to tap into their soul, their essence, their consciousness, God, universe. It's something that I believe is a birthright, and something that you and I can dive very deeply into through another talk.
Sure, that's sounds like a great project. Uh, in a way, I'm not saying, I'm not going to say I have the same idea exactly, but
Yeah.
one thing I was sharing with my good friend Tony from London, which has been on the show many times, is this. I also want to kind of do individual projects with people, because I think sometimes we go very broad and wanna. And I had a little experiment on that, which was Africa. You're on the show, and I
Mhm.
had 3 gentlemen on, and it was just purely people from Africa, and we had some very organic, beautiful shows, and it was 5 minutes, $25 US, which I know it doesn't sound like a much, but it was kind of a donation for their time coming on the show, and it was an amazing experience. And if I get the financial backing or something like that, I would love to do similar things of trying to, for example, help students with a semester in school,
Mhm.
with stuff maybe they're about to end college and help them out. I'm talking not necessarily people in America on that. I'm talking worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah, worldwide.
Because, for example, you can in Africa, you could probably pay for a semester in school with $1,000.
Mhm.
So it's not out of the question, maybe. So that's a project I would like to do. It's someone told me that once and resonated with me. Sometimes we want to fix the world, but how about you have someone working for you, you
Mhm.
have someone that you know. Sometimes people just out of the street, they request help, and you can do the individual changing of a life, which is amazing. Because at the end, I'm completely sure, 1,000% sure,
Mm.
we are here to service others. We became strong ourselves so we can service others.
Yes.
Sometimes the message of self-discovery, of self-empowerment looks very egoistic, that,
Mhm.
oh, it's about me, I'm special. And that's why I didn't like that part of Terrence Howard, that, oh, I'm the smartest people alive. You don't need to say that. You're very bright, but you don't need to
Mhm.
say that, okay? Uh, because at the end, he has the power to change so many lives. And Joe Rogan has the power to change so many lives. So sometimes I see these people that are in that position to do so much good. And why? Yes, I know they donate and they have their charities, but that energy
Mhm.
kind of diffuminates. It's not same as changing individual lives. I don't know. It's a project I have. I would like to do individual projects through the channel, but of course I need to figure out the financials on that.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful idea, and you never know who you're going to activate. It may be that person that you help who sees the world differently, and they may touch tens of thousands of people.
Exactly. Yes, I
But the
agree with
person
that.
who is just nurturing the people around them is incubating that. And the vision I had years ago was every soul that comes online, that becomes somebody working within the post office, becomes somebody working within government, it becomes somebody working within industry. And every soul that activates brings a new consciousness, which is not new, but it's new to us, a new way into old institutions and old ways. And you begin to see this rising tide bringing all the boats to shore. So I think that's the gift we have. It's through service, because service takes us out of the small self and brings us into connection with the world around us. And then we find that we are an extension of who we're connecting to, that you are the hand that reaches out to me. You were their inward and outward breath, and we form union through our service together. And I find that when I'm in that space, I have no problems.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Abe. And certainly looking forward to our next conversation. And
I'm too.
I'm going to include, for the ones watching on my channel, the Alex Show TV, I'm going to include Abe's link to his channel on the video notes. Please go. Very good stuff. I like it very much. One suggestion,
Sure.
maybe try bring on guests. I think because you make it was an excellent chat. I honestly liked it very much. So I can think you're going to be a great host as well. So
Well, we actually started a podcast today. It's funny you should mention that. Before I
okay.
recorded this, I recorded the first one with my wife. And
Oh,
our dream
great.
for that is to have people on, have them share their experience of how they're evolving and growing in consciousness and their own connected state, but show their lives, show their experience, and show how the voice of the one, or the voice of the universe, or voice of God, love and light, comes through all of us. And in that way, we can see non-egoically how that potential is resonant in everyone. So that's on the forefront, and that's something that we're starting as of today, and we should have videos out here very soon. But I want to have a conversation. What you and I did is beautiful, and I want to do this more.
Thank you. No, I also enjoyed it very much, and I'm going to look forward to watching that on your channel. Just a final note on what you just said. I
Yeah.
constantly say that we're all equal, and I sometimes don't get the best reception on that. And or you're a communist or you're a socialist. No, just think about it. That creation is not going to make second-class citizens. Okay,
No.
so we are all equal. We are all part of the creation. We are all in a way brothers and sisters. Uh, so my suggestion is if you start looking at through those eyes, it's also going to help you. Maybe you're going to, I'm talking now to the one listening. It's maybe going to make you less enraged, less upset with the world, more open. If you start looking at, having a positive outlook on everything works for you as well. It's not
Yeah.
only, you're not doing an effort for the world, it's actually better for you as well. As I shared, if they clear our minds, suddenly you don't hate anyone. Suddenly you
Yeah.
are not afraid of anything. Suddenly you are just living. Maybe not happy or sad. That's maybe not. That's also a spectrum, but you're just in the moment. A lot of the things they make us suffer is through our own preconceptions, conceptions of the past. So thank you, Abe. I enjoyed it very much, and I'm already looking forward to our next chat.
That sounds good. Yeah, and thank you for anyone listening, and thank you for the time and the space to share.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for making it to this part of the video. This is my favorite part. This is where I suggest to you that you discover your true self. You are not what you have been groomed to believe. You are this incredible being without limits that has eternal life, amazing strength, infinite wisdom, and a big, beautiful heart. All your limits are always self-imposed. Your best version in this reality is inside you. Your only mission on this life is to become a beacon of love and to serve others. This version is ready to be discovered today. How do you discover your true self? The discovery process is a personal one. No one can do it for you. Dedicate 5 minutes a day to talk to the universe. Simply ask, who am I? Where do I come from? What is my purpose? You will start getting signs, breadcrumbs, and signals. You will notice how your emotions about this reality start disappearing. No more hierarchies, no more competition, no more complaining, no more depending on others. Discovering your true self equals to real freedom. Your self-imposed limits will fall and you will be ready to understand this reality, but you must be patient to allow others to wake up at their time through their own free will. That will be really soon, you will see, and that will set up a new world. As you work towards your best version, you will notice how all emotions don't serve you anymore. Hate, fear, rage, pride, lust, envy, violence, justice through violence, judgment of others, and other emotions will disappear from your mind and heart. You will understand those emotions serve only your egoic mind and are not you. Please try to be understanding of others that don't think or feel like you. Everyone has a process. No one is right or wrong. We're all just different. Don't be concerned about being right, ever. Don't allow pride preventing you from patching things up with family and friends. It is very important you enjoy this life with your loved ones. Put in the work to patch things up and leave it to others to decide. Thank you very much for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, please use the comment section below. For private questions, conversations, and if you would like to appear on the show, please email me at hey@thealexshow.tv. Thank you again. Please don't forget to visit our website www.thealexshow.tv. By giving me your time, you honor me. Have a very, very, very nice day.